Old couple was rejected by car dealer. Successful son taught them a lesson. I believe that kindness always comes back to you. But judging others, especially based on the color of their skin, will always lead to a hard lesson learned. One bright morning, everything shifted at a high-end car dealership because of a small misstep. Nobody could have guessed what would unfold when an older couple stepped inside. Stay until the end to see how one moment flipped everything upside down. The gleaming glass doors of the dealership parted softly, letting sunlight flood the showroom. The space sparkled under dazzling chandeliers, their glow dancing across shiny, pricey cars. The air carried the scent of fresh leather and wax, wrapping the place in a sense of wealth. Into this polished world walked an older couple, their arrival pausing the room's buzz. The man wore a faded green jacket, a tidy but worn shirt, and simple slacks, moving with a slight limp. His wife, gently holding his arm, wore a plain yellow dress and gripped a small purse tightly. Her hair was neatly pulled back, her shy smile hinting at unease as she glanced around. Their presence caught every eye. Chatter faded, coffee cups stilled, and curious stares turned their way. A woman lounging on a plush couch, sporting oversized sunglasses, peered over them openly. A man in a crisp navy suit muttered to his coworker, a smirk creeping across his face. The dealership's lively hum grew thick with tension. The couple, no strangers to such looks, moved carefully through the showroom. They gazed at the glossy cars from afar, eyes full of wonder but cautious, as if they didn't belong. The woman whispered to her husband, her voice trembling, "Maybe we shouldn't be here." He gave her hand a gentle squeeze, offering a warm smile. "We're just looking, sweetheart," he said, though a flicker of hurt crossed his eyes. From the far side of the room, a salesman eyed them coldly. He wore a sharp gray suit, his brown hair slicked back perfectly. Adjusting his tie, he shared a quick look with another salesman before heading their way. His polished shoes clicked sharply on the marble floor as he approached. His name was Mark Davis, a top salesman known for his arrogance. He stopped a few feet away, keeping a cool, deliberate distance. His keen eyes scanned them, lingering on their simple clothes. "Good morning," Mark said, his voice smooth but insincere. His smile was stiff, never reaching his hazel eyes. "I think you might have walked into the wrong place." The older man looked puzzled. "We're just here to see the cars," he said calmly, though worry deepened on his brow. Mark gave a small, hollow chuckle. He crossed his arms, standing tall and smug. "What I'm saying is," he drawled, his tone cutting, "this isn't the spot for folks like you." His words landed heavily, sharp with intent, as he glanced at their attire again. Behind him, a few customers and staff snickered. The woman with sunglasses grinned, whispering to her companion. Another employee with a car catalog turned away, barely hiding a smirk. The older woman clutched her husband's hand, her fingers shaking. Her eyes glistened, but she blinked hard, refusing to let tears fall. Her husband stood taller, meeting Mark's gaze steadily. "We came to look at cars," he said firmly, his voice calm but strong. "You've got no right to speak to us like that." Mark shrugged, unbothered. "I'm not being rude," he said with a mocking grin. "Just stating facts. These cars start at $850. You can't afford them." Some staff laughed openly now, dropping any pretense. The room felt heavy with cruelty. In the corner, Sofia Rivera, a young saleswoman, watched, her stomach twisting. She gripped her stack of papers, her face flushing with anger and shame. She wanted to step in, to stop this, but hesitated. Before she could act, the couple quietly turned toward the exit. They didn't raise their voices or make a fuss, they simply walked away. Their heads stayed high, despite the sting of humiliation. They passed the staring eyes, the smirks, and the muffled laughs. The heavy glass door shut behind them with a soft thud, closing them out. Outside, under the blazing sun, the woman trembled slightly. She held her husband's arm tightly, drawing strength from him. He let out a quiet sigh, his shoulders sagging. "I'm sorry, darling," he said, his voice heavy with regret. "We shouldn't have come." She shook her head, eyes wet with tears. "No," she whispered, "it's not our fault, it's theirs." Her voice cracked as she added, "I thought things were better now." Through the glass, Mark Davis stood smugly, arms crossed, a satisfied smirk on his face. He glanced at his colleagues, who whispered and chuckled together. Their laughter felt harsh against the couple's silent pain. The couple descended the stone steps slowly, weighed down. They paused on the busy sidewalk, watching cars speed by, the world moving on. The woman glanced back one last time. Through the glass, she caught Sofia Rivera's eyes, filled with guilt and sorrow. In that fleeting moment, they shared a quiet understanding of the wrong done. The woman turned away, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. "Let's go home," her husband said softly. "This isn't our place." They walked off, blending into the crowd, carrying a silent wound. That evening, golden sunlight bathed the grand, elegant house. Inside, the dining room was hushed, missing its usual warmth. A polished oak table gleamed with fine plates and silverware, but no laughter filled the air. The couple sat across from each other, eating slowly, lost in thought. Their favorite meal, carefully prepared, went mostly untouched. They moved their forks quietly, minds elsewhere. At the head of the table sat their son, Ethan, a young, successful entrepreneur. Ethan could always sense when something was off, and tonight, it was clear. His parents, usually full of stories and smiles, seemed burdened. He set down his fork, sipped his water, and studied them. "What's wrong?" he asked gently, cutting through the silence. His parents looked up, startled. His father cleared his throat, forcing a weary smile. "Nothing, son," he said, trying to sound casual. "We're just worn out." Ethan tilted his head, unconvinced. "I know you both too well for that," he said kindly. "Tell me what's bothering you." Silence hung for a moment. His mother stared at her plate, twisting her napkin nervously. His father glanced at her, then at Ethan, hesitating. Finally, his mother spoke, her voice soft and unsteady. "We visited a car dealership today," she said, eyes fixed on her food. "We wanted to look, maybe find something nice for your dad's birthday." Ethan smiled, encouraging her to go on. But she paused, swallowing hard. "When we got there, they didn't want us," she said. "They looked at us like we didn't belong." His father shifted, touching the tablecloth. "They said we couldn't afford anything," he added quietly, bitterness in his voice. "They said people like us don't fit there." Ethan's expression darkened. He sat up straighter, hands steadying on the table. He knew what they meant. His mother's eyes shimmered with tears. "They shamed us, Ethan," she said. "Right in front of everyone." They laughed. The words lingered, heavy and painful. Ethan's hands slowly clenched, anger rising inside. But he kept his voice even. "Did they say anything else?" he asked calmly. His father shook his head, his face grim. "No, just enough to make us feel unwelcome." Ethan exhaled slowly, reining in his emotions. It wasn't just the embarrassment, it was the cruel judgment of his parents' worth. He stood and walked to the large window overlooking the garden. For a long moment, he stared into the fading light. His mother's trembling voice broke the quiet. "We didn't want trouble, we just left." Ethan turned slowly, his face composed but his eyes burning. "You did nothing wrong," he said firmly. "Absolutely nothing." His parents exchanged a look. His mother biting her lip. His father sighing. "We know, son," his father said slowly. "But it still hurts." Ethan nodded. "I understand, but I'm not letting this slide." His mother looked worried. "Ethan, we don't want this causing problems for you." Ethan crossed to his mother's chair, kneeling beside her and taking her hand. "You're my parents," he said strongly. "If anyone has an issue with me defending you, that's their mistake." His mother squeezed his hand, her lips trembling. "We've spent our lives staying quiet, avoiding conflict." Ethan's eyes softened, but his voice held firm. "Maybe it's time we stop being silent." His father leaned back, thoughtful. "We thought things had changed, son." Ethan gave a small, bittersweet smile. "Some things have, but not enough." They sat in silence, the only sounds the soft ticking of a clock and the evening breeze outside. Finally, his father spoke, his voice low. "I don't get it, son. We never hurt anyone. We lived honest, good lives. Why do people still look down on us?" Ethan looked at his father, his heart aching. "They judge because they're blind," he said softly. "They think they know you by your appearance. Their prejudice defines them, not you." His mother wiped a tear, her face proud yet sad. "Can we even change that, son?" Ethan paused before answering. "We can't change everyone, but we can prove them wrong. We can demand the respect we deserve." His father nodded, pride glinting in his eyes. "You're right, maybe we've been quiet too long." Ethan smiled, fierce and determined. "Exactly. It's not about revenge, it's about standing tall." His mother smiled faintly, still holding his hand. "We're so proud of you, Ethan." Ethan stood, gazing at them with love and resolve. "And I'm proud of you. You taught me strength. Now I'll show the world what that means." The room felt lighter, warmed by quiet hope. The pain lingered, but they weren't alone. As night fell, the family stayed together, bound by love and a promise for tomorrow. Ethan knew this wasn't the end, it was just the beginning. The next morning, the city woke under a clear, golden sky. Streets bustled with life, the air crisp and new. But at the upscale car dealership, something big was stirring. Two rare, gleaming Aston Martin cars rolled up smoothly in front. Their deep silver bodies shone under the sun, radiating power and wealth. Inside the dealership, everything stopped. Staff and customers turned to the wide windows, their voices fading. Eyes widened, whispers spreading fast. Even Mark Davis, the rude salesman, looked up from his chat. He frowned, trying to stay cool, but unease crept in. "Who's showing off this early?" he muttered, masking his curiosity. As the cars halted, the dealership held its breath. The drivers, in crisp uniforms, stepped out and opened the rear doors. From the first car, Ethan emerged, dressed in a tailored charcoal suit. He stood tall, calm, and commanding, exuding authority. Every move was confident, purposeful. From the second car, the older couple stepped out. They wore the same humble clothes, his old jacket, her simple dress. But today, they moved with certainty, heads high, no trace of fear. They stood proudly beside their son. Inside, jaws dropped. Staff who'd laughed yesterday froze, stunned. Customers stared, sensing something extraordinary unfolding. Mark Davis's face paled. His heart raced, words failing him. A cold dread hit as he recognized the couple he'd mocked. Ethan paused, letting the silence settle heavily. With his parents by his side, he stepped forward slowly. Each footfall echoed on the polished floor in the hushed showroom. The manager, just arriving, saw the commotion and hurried out. His eyes widened at the Aston Martins and the family's powerful presence. He moved quickly to the center, sensing something major. Ethan's gaze swept the room, noting the shocked faces. When his eyes met Mark Davis's, the salesman flinched, stepping back. Ethan stopped in the middle of the showroom. The room seemed to revolve around him. "Today," he said, his voice clear and strong, "I'm here to teach a lesson. A lesson no one should ever forget." His words were deliberate, resonating through the space. Everyone listened, knowing this moment mattered. Ethan's parents stood close, their faces calm but resolute, their dignity unshaken. The manager, now standing nearby, fidgeted nervously, sensing the weight of the situation. Ethan continued, his voice steady but carrying an undeniable force. "Yesterday, my parents came here with nothing but curiosity and respect. They were met with judgment, cruelty, and disrespect." His eyes locked briefly on Mark, who shrank under the gaze, his earlier arrogance gone. This dealership judged them not for who they are, but for how they looked. That was a mistake, a costly one. Murmurs rippled through the room, but Ethan's presence silenced them. He gestured toward his parents, his voice softening with pride. "These are my parents, Samuel and Clara Hayes. They've lived lives of honesty, hard work, and kindness. They taught me that worth isn't measured by wealth or appearance, but by character." Samuel stood a little taller, his hand resting gently on Clara's arm. Clara's eyes, though still carrying yesterday's pain, shone with quiet strength. Ethan's tone grew firmer, addressing the entire room. But yesterday, their character was ignored. Instead, they were humiliated, laughed at, and dismissed. He paused, letting the words sink in, the silence deafening. "That ends today." The manager stepped forward, his face pale, attempting to speak. "Sir, I assure you, we didn't mean." Ethan raised a hand, cutting him off, his gaze unwavering. "I'm not here for apologies," he said. "I'm here for accountability." He turned slightly, nodding toward the gleaming Aston Martins outside. "Those cars out there? They're a small piece of what my family has built. My company, Hayes Enterprises, doesn't just buy cars, we shape industries." Gasps echoed softly, staff exchanging wide-eyed glances. Mark's hands trembled, his smugness replaced by panic. Ethan's voice grew sharper, each word precise. "My parents didn't come here to prove anything yesterday. They didn't need to. But today, I'm making sure no one ever forgets who they are." He stepped closer to the manager, his presence commanding. "Your dealership prides itself on luxury, but you forgot something essential. Respect isn't bought, it's earned. And it's owed to every person who walks through that door." The manager nodded quickly, sweat beading on his forehead. "Of course, Mr. Hayes, we'll make this right." Ethan shook his head, his expression unyielding. "This isn't about making it right with me. It's about ensuring this never happens again, to anyone." He turned to the crowd, his voice rising with conviction. "Prejudice has no place here, or anywhere. Judging someone by their clothes, their skin, or their story is a failure of character. And today, that failure stops." Sofia Rivera, still clutching her papers, stepped forward hesitantly. Her voice was quiet but clear. "I'm so sorry," she said, looking at Samuel and Clara. "I should have spoken up yesterday. I didn't, and I regret it." Clara offered a gentle smile, her eyes kind. "Thank you, dear," she said softly. "It takes courage to admit that." Ethan nodded at Sofia, acknowledging her sincerity, then faced Mark directly. "You," he said, his voice low but piercing. "You chose to belittle my parents. To make them feel small." Mark opened his mouth, stammering, but Ethan continued. "Your words yesterday showed who you are. I hope you learn from this, because the world doesn't need more of that." Mark's face burned red, his head bowed, unable to meet Ethan's eyes. Ethan turned back to the room, his tone softening but still firm. "My family doesn't need your cars or your approval. But we demand your respect, not just for us, but for everyone." He gestured toward his parents, his voice warm with love. "These two people are my foundation, my heroes. They deserve better, and so does every person who's ever been judged unfairly." The room was silent, the weight of his words settling over everyone. Customers nodded slowly, some looking ashamed. Staff shuffled uncomfortably, reflecting on their own actions. Ethan took a step back, standing between his parents, his hands resting lightly on their shoulders. "We're done here," he said simply. "But let this be a reminder, kindness costs nothing, but disrespect costs everything." Samuel spoke for the first time, his voice steady and warm. "We didn't come back to prove a point," he said. "We came so no one else feels what we did." Clara nodded, her voice soft but clear. "All we ever wanted was to be seen as people. Nothing more." The manager, desperate to salvage the moment, spoke up. "Mr. Hayes, please, let us make amends. We'll take action, I promise." Ethan met his gaze, his expression calm but resolute. "Then start today," he said. "Train your staff, change your culture, make this a place where everyone belongs." He turned to his parents, offering a small smile. "Let's go," he said gently. They nodded, and together, the family walked toward the glass doors. The crowd parted silently, watching them leave with a mix of awe and shame. Outside, the Aston Martins waited, gleaming under the morning sun. As they reached the cars, Sophia ran out, her voice urgent. "Mr. and Mrs. Hayes," she called, catching up. "I want to do better. I'll make sure this place changes." Samuel smiled warmly. "That's a good start, young lady," he said. Clara reached out, touching Sophia's arm lightly. "We believe in second chances," she said. "Use yours well." Sophia nodded, tears in her eyes, as the family climbed into their cars. The engines purred to life, and the Aston Martins pulled away smoothly. Inside the dealership, the silence lingered, broken only by the manager's shaky voice. "Meeting in 10 minutes, he said. "We've got work to do." Mark stood frozen, staring at the floor, his career and confidence shaken. Customers whispered among themselves, some vowing to spread the story. The Hayes family drove off, the city unfolding before them. Ethan glanced at his parents in the rearview mirror, their faces peaceful. "We did good today," he said quietly. Samuel reached for Clara's hand, squeezing it gently. "We did," he agreed. "And maybe we made a difference." Clara smiled, her eyes bright with hope. "Every step forward counts," she said. As the cars vanished into the morning light, the dealership stood quieter, forever changed. A lesson had been learned, one that would echo far beyond those glass walls.